Okay, just before going through my presentation, just for few mention about the question we received before about the difference between DLT and blockchain. Some other differences, for example, is that in Corda you don't have the concept of mining a block, right? Because mining a block means that it's a way to reach consensus, like David said before. We don't have this concept in Corda. So the consensus in Corda is reached because the state consumed in the transaction is unique, and the transaction is well done. So you have all the signature required to do the transaction. Another fundamental difference is the stability. So Corda blockchains networks created on Corda blockchain are more stable. And then eventually you have someone to call up. So you have a professional service, you have R3 that you can call, you have SBI R3 that you can call here in case of any problem. You don't have anybody to call if you have problems with Ethereum, right? So these are other differences. So very quickly about the new features introduced by in Corda 4.6 and the Corda Enterprise Network Management 1.4. They have been released last week, so they are very, very recent. There are many new features. I will go through the biggest ones. So the first one is about membership. Basically now in Corda you have a way for Corda developers. You have a way to create network abstractions. So you can give some additional metadata to participants in the network, and you can create basically business networks inside the Corda network, right? So that in that way, you can basically manage the life cycle of a membership inside the network and give some more, have some more a more granular way to manage the membership and the relationship between the participants in the network. And you can do this with APIs, so you can program this in a Corda. This is a very, very interesting feature. This is coming from experience that R3 engineers have in a real project in production. Another one for which I'm very excited about personally is because I find it extremely interesting is the flow management. So with Corda 4.6, you can do a number of new, you have a number of new ways to basically check and follow the flows in Corda. So you can query, you can pause, you can retry the flows. So you can have a better visibility and control of what's going on in the flows in the network. A very important one is that in order to restart the flow that we call hospitalized flows are flows that failed, but they can be retried, right? So they can be retried once they have been checked by the Corda developers or the node operators. And before Corda.6, you needed to restart the node, the Corda node, so causes some downtime. Now you basically can restart the flow specifically without restarting the node itself. Another one is that you can start flows with using a unique ID. So these solves a couple of problems. The first is that you can restart specifically the flow with having that unique ID. So you basically prevent restarting the same flow multiple times by mistake, for example. Or in case of connection issues, so in case the Corda node lose connection with the client, which is connected to the Corda node, you basically now can very easily reconnect the client to the Corda flow that he was connected to before. And you can check the progress. So these are very, very, very interesting features. So mostly for the node operators. So, and also for, of course, the Corda developers. Related to operations development, there has been work in the harmonization of the database schema management between the Corda open source and Corda Enterprise, so that now it's easier to migrate from Corda open source to Corda Enterprise. All the tooling regarding the database management has been enhanced. So this is very good news. Regarding the Corda Docker images that David mentioned before, there are new Docker images available, so that now you can basically have images to support the full production deployment of Corda Enterprise with Docker. So now you have images for all the, for example, services around the Enterprise Network Manager, the Zone service, the Farm service that now has been renamed in Gateway service. So you have all these in the Corda Docker Hub. Regarding the something about the Corda network, so you don't need to restart the node once there are some updates in the network parameters. For example, when you change or you add a new notary, you don't need to restart the node. There is a new way to create a node maintenance node in case of maintenance. And for those who are interested to get some metrics about the Corda node server, basically now there is a new set of tooling that allows you to get these metrics. Very quickly about the Corda Enterprise Network Manager. So now the way the errors are handled inside the Corda Enterprise Network Manager are the same as Corda and Corda Enterprise. Every time you receive an exception in Corda Network Manager, you will see also an error code, and these error codes have been documented in the Corda documentation online, which is available for everybody. So that every time customers have some issues and they can see the Corda, the error code, they can go to check them out on the Corda documentation. There has been improvement in performance and reliability of Corda on what we call the network map service. This is to increase the reliability and performance of networks made by tens of thousands of nodes, and also extend the support for the deployment with AWS, mostly with Kubernetes on AWS. So now there is a new, the documentation and the support has been enhanced for this kind of deployments. There is much more than this, so I went very quickly through the main ones, but you can find documentation both in English and in Japanese. So in English, of course, you have the official release notes inside the Corda documentation. Also, there are the videos in the YouTube channel of Corda Blockchain, when you can see the real demos. So all the things that I mentioned before, for some of them, you can see a real demo. And also in Japanese, this is the work that we are doing in SBI R3 Japan. We basically translate some of the documentation to give support to Japanese-speaking customers in Japan and developers in Japan. You can read all the new features in our blog on Medium, and also in what we call Corda Guide, which is a repository or documentation all in Japanese, where basically we write articles about the new features of Corda all in Japanese. And this is to support all the customers and developers here in Japan who are using Corda and would like to try Corda. And that's it. So if there are questions for me and David, we would be very happy to answer.
Maybe just one comment, Alessandro, and this all sounds very complicated, but in fact, as David said in his presentation, any programming language that works on a JVM can be used. And you used to run one-day boot camps on a Saturday from like 10 to 4 p.m. or so. So anybody who is able to program in Java at the end of that boot camp was able to build a basic application on Corda. So yes. I think that's an indication of how simple it is at the basic level, then the
Yeah.
nuances, of course, are difficult. Are you still running these bootcamp workshops?
Yes, of course, they are online at the moment. So, and in the boot camps, the Japanese colleagues do mostly presentation at the moment. But yeah, I mean, where we were doing the boot camps, people were very happy. So using Corda for people who have never used it, it's very, very simple. And also the documentation online, there is a very huge documentation. Both in the website of the documentation and also on GitHub, there are plenty of examples for all the kind of use cases. So people who are familiar with Java and Kotlin, they can really create some transaction and start using Corda immediately. So it's very, very simple.
So if you're technically inclined and want to build your first blockchain app, give it a shot.